It's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast with Ryan and Jacob. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's the start of another month, and that means that Jacob and I are going to be doing another monthly preview for the month of May. I cannot believe that we are a quarter of the way through 2022. It's crazy to think about. We'll also be talking about Moon Knight Episode 5 and Daredevil Episode 6. But first, I got to introduce my main man, my co-host, Jacob Martin. Jacob, can you believe we're a quarter of the way through this year?
Yeah, that is crazy because we started our podcast back at the beginning of the year and we're already in May already. That is crazy. And I'm excited to dive into this May preview and share some upcoming movies and see what we're excited about, what we're not excited about. It's going to be an interesting discussion, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to be tabling what we've been watching lately for next week because we've got a lot to unpack this week. So we're just going to dive headfirst into the Moon Knight and the Daredevil stuff. So let's talk about Moon Knight Episode 5. We both got a chance to see it. The finale is going to be dropping the day that this drops, and so it's going to be interesting to see how this show wraps up. But I have an entire review of the episode on my channel if you'd like to check that out, so I'll turn it over to Jacob. Jacob, what do you think of Moon Knight Episode 5?
I was not prepared. This was a fantastic episode. Easily my favorite of the 5 episodes so far.
Yeah, that's the correct response. You are not prepared.
It did an amazing job of diving into the backstory of Marc as a character, how he got the personality disorder, how the trauma that he got from the abuse he had as a kid was what spawned the Steven personality and where that came into play. And I thought it was handled very beautifully. I thought the tragedy of his story very much hit me in the feels in so many layers. This is easily the best I've seen Oscar Isaac in anything, and I've always enjoyed him in movies, like say what you will in the sequel trilogy, but I thought Oscar Isaac was good as Poe. He was consistent all the way through, and he's been good in other movies like Ex Machina and Inside Llewyn Davis, which is a pretty good hidden gem from the Coen brothers. But oh man, he really goes all out with this character. Like, I've always been a fan of the 2 personalities he provides, but he really, doubles that down in this performance. And I was so impressed by this episode and the emotional undercurrent that it does have. I'm very much intrigued by how they're going to wrap up everything in one episode because it can go in many different directions. I was left blown away by the past episode. I was also a little confused at the same time because is it implying that a good chunk of the Moon Knight stuff was still all in his head and he's in an asylum? Is Marc actually dead? Is he in the underworld? Is he in like the Egyptian version of heaven as teased at the end of that episode? Did Steven actually die, and did Marc let the Steven part of him go because of the whole balance of the scales? What's actually going on? It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next episode. I'm excited to see the next episode, and hopefully they will deliver on an amazing finale, and it won't be as underwhelming as past finales in Disney Plus shows like WandaVision, for example. WandaVision was a good show, but the finale was a little bit messy in my opinion. But Moon Knight is great. What did you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I love this episode. This is the best episode of this show by a significant margin. Like, the show has been good, but it's like episode 5 is just like leagues ahead of the rest of the show. It's going to be interesting to see how they wrap this whole thing up. I've been hearing rumors that this was supposed to be a mini series, but they've tweaked it to it's the season finale, aka we might be getting another season of this, which I personally would not be opposed to. But it's going to be fascinating. I saw on social media the guy who runs the Film Speak channel, Griffin Schiller. He 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 tweeted after the episode, Oscar Isaac just gave the best MCU performance ever. And I don't know if I 100% agree with that statement. I can definitely see Oscar Isaac's performance in this episode being in the conversation because he crushes it. This episode dives like so thoroughly into Steven / Marc's backstory, and it's like the two are like the two are different. They're also the same. It's like in Breaking Bad how Walter White describes the polarity principle, how the two hands are basically look and act alike, but they're also different in unique ways. And I thought that was all handled very well. There's some very brutal scenes in this episode too. Like when his mom gets drunk and he is like, "You were the one that should have died and not him." Like, that's some good childhood trauma right there. And then it's just like, wow, I was not prepared. I'm going to overuse the phrase, I was not prepared. But I watched this the day it premiered. It was like 7:00 in the morning. I was drinking my coffee, and I saw that line come up, and I'm like, oh wow, I did not anticipate that this morning. And so overall, I thought it was all handled just tremendously well.
Yeah, I was again blown away by like the emotional quality that this episode did have. And it reminded me of a little bit of probably my favorite episode of WandaVision, which was the second to last episode that dived into the psyche of Wanda as a character. It's crazy that those two episodes are very similar in a lot of ways. And it'll be interesting seeing if Moon Knight's finale is actually going to deliver, unlike the WandaVision finale, which had good moments, but other moments kind of left me scratching my head.
Yeah, so what did you all think of Moon Knight Episode 5? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read, or we would love to read, what you would have to say about that. All right, well, Jacob, let's dive into talking about Daredevil Episode 7, called Stick, where we meet Daredevil's very cranky mentor, named Stick, played by Scott Glenn. What did you think of this episode?
This one was really good. I was very much impressed with another great episode of Daredevil. Stick very much fascinates me as a character. I know I've seen that actor before. What else? Has he been in like some of the Bourne movies? He looks very familiar.
Well, Scott Glenn's been in a ton of stuff. He was Alan. He was Alan Shepard in The Right Stuff, a very underrated space movie. Let me pull up his IMDb really quick. He was the sensei in Sucker Punch, but will not hold that against him.
Okay, that one was rough.
Scott Glenn. He was Bart Mancuso in The Hunt for Red October. He was Jack Crawford in The Silence of the Lambs. He was in Greenland from 2020. Let's see. He was also in the Bourne movies as Ezra Kramer. He was the father in Secretariat. He's been a character actor in a lot of stuff.
I knew I recognized him. I was just trying to piece where had I seen him before. And you said the Bourne movies and the dad in Secretariat. I'm like, okay, he was really good. It was cool that we got, we're midway into the season, and this was kind of like a breather of an episode. His past ones were all about Daredevil and trying to take on Wilson Fisk. This one dives into his past again and how he gets trained and mentored by Stick, who is another blind guy, and he does like this kind of like military style training program on Matt to try to get him to like embrace the senses that he has now that he's blind. And I thought that was very fascinating. And yeah, he's very much, your stern, cold, very emotionless character who, Matt wants to look up to him as a father figure, but he doesn't really see it that way. And I like the vast contrast between, the ruthlessness of Stick and Daredevil, who, he's a vigilante as well, but he doesn't go down the line Stick does. He wants to be fair and balanced and everything, and he has love and he's sympathetic to others, which it's a good little contrast between the two characters that I thought was really cool. I'm excited to see more of Stick as a character. I'm very intrigued by the direction that was teased at the end of the episode. Is I'm not sure whether he, I guess, good or bad or not. There's like a moral gray in his character, as what was hinted at the end of the episode. Stick wanted to kill this like sickly looking boy in one part, and Daredevil's like, no, I don't want that. But he's like, no, I already know the kid's future. He's dangerous. So who are we going to trust in all this? I am very much intrigued by this side of the Daredevil story with his old cranky, very senile mentor. I am very excited about that aspect. I also thought it was cool that, Foggy, I think I got it right this week. Foggy is actually part of the side story now with Karen and Ben and taking on the Union Allies aspect of Fisk's pay grade. I'm intrigued. I'm excited about that because Foggy is such an awesome character, and bringing him into the B story with the secondary characters, I think closely brings the two plots together. I'm really excited to see where that's going to bring, and I assume the season finale. I thought this was a really good episode. There was a lot of intriguing stuff. I missed Wilson Fisk, but I can't wait to see him in future episodes and see where the season's gonna go.
Yeah, I have very mixed feelings on Stick. On the one hand, I don't know, like, he just seems like a very cranky person. And I mean, I guess that was the intent, but I guess it worked a little too well on me. I was like, you are a complete and total, like, just horrible person. But at the same time, he did train Daredevil, and Daredevil is pretty much a Swiss Army knife in the form of a man. So, I mean, there's some wisdom to his methods. But again, at the same time, in the words of Sonny from My Robot, it just seems so heartless.
Yeah, it was fascinating seeing that because you see the good things about this character because he trained Daredevil, gave him some really awesome advice as a kid on how to, accept, the disability that he does have, that he's blind. But then you see he's also cold and heartless. Like, he gave Stick that bracelet he made out of the ice cream cone. He just crunches that up like it's nothing. I'm like, dude, he's trying to be your father figure, and you just crush that in seconds. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, it like I said, brutal stuff. It's kind of like Whiplash with Terrence Fletcher. I mean, you can't you can't like his methods, but at the same time, he's produced a lot of really good jazz players. So there's wisdom to it, but at the same time, you're just sitting there like, does he really have to be this mean? So it's just it's a conundrum, I suppose.
At least Stick didn't throw a chair at young Matt Murdock. That would have been like irredeemable there.
Or to ask him if he was rushing or dragging while slapping him in the face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you'll see throughout the rest of this show that the A and the B plot are slowly coming closer and closer together. I'm glad you're getting into the whole Uric and Paige and now Foggy side of things, because I remember you weren't really into Uric, but now I imagine he's grown on you a little bit.
Yeah, he pretty much has. I just remember in episode 3, I'm like, okay, why is this character there? But then Karen gets involved in it. Now we got Foggy, and I'm like, okay, I think we're getting somewhere, and I'm excited to see where that's going to lead.
Yeah, and what you were talking about, the tease at the end, I don't know if I should say any. I guess I'll go general. This is basically leading into the Defenders. I mean, you know about nothing specific about the Defenders, but you know that the Defenders is a series on Netflix, or well, Disney Plus now, that we will eventually get to. But basically, Stick is teasing that Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist are all going to form the Defenders and go after the Hand. That's basically what Stick is implying there. I don't think I'm spoiling anything that for you, right?
No, I don't think so. That's just a general assumption. Although, based on where it teased, I thought it was going to be like Stick turning against his old student Daredevil there. I thought he was doing something very shady there. Sounds like even though with him being so heartless, I guess he's like the Nick Fury of these formerly titled Netflix Marvel shows.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you all think of Daredevil episode 7? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say about it. So with all of that out of the way, Jacob, let's dig into the May preview. And this is actually this is pretty much a month of 2 movies if you really think about it, and we'll get to those 2. Well, let's start off by talking about one of them. It's literally the one coming out this weekend, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I think we should just give this a preeminent 5 and and move on, because I think we're both pumped beyond belief for this. And I should say to everyone out there, try your best to stay away from the spoilers. People are being surprisingly reckless about this movie. I haven't seen anything personally. There have been some close calls. So nothing like in a certain context, but my point is be careful, because from what I have read, this movie's going to have a lot of references. So, I mean, 5, Jacob, is that?
Yeah, 5 for sure. I am so hyped beyond belief to see this movie. And like you said, Ryan, there's like 2 movies that I'm going to go 5 on just because I'm excited to see them. There's a bunch of movies we'll be talking about that I'm not as crazy about. There's a lot that look like an absolute waste of time. But this and a certain other movie coming out Memorial Day weekend are the 2 movies that I will definitely be seeing opening weekend. This is easily my most anticipated movie of the month. You got Doctor Strange. It's an MCU movie. Sam Raimi's directing it. Multiverse stuff. It's going to be one insane comic book movie. I hope it delivers, and I wouldn't be surprised if it makes my top 10 or top 5 MCU movies if it's really, really good.
Yeah, this is actually a big week for the MCU. Not only is Moon Knight wrapping up, but Doctor Strange is dropping. So on both like the lower tier and the big tier MCUs, there's like big things going down. I don't think we'll see something like that for quite some time. So it's pretty safe to say that Multiverse of Madness is going to be one to watch, if that is any indication. Next up, let's take a steep dip in quality and talk about Marmaduke. This is a Netflix original. Can we go 0 on this? Because this movie looks like barely even a movie. This movie doesn't even look like it's finished. Like, am I wrong on this?
It looks so bad. Like, I didn't even know this movie was coming out until we were developing the May preview. And I DM'd you this, and you're like, there's a Marmaduke movie coming out? And I'm like, apparently so. And you know it's going to be bad. Like, Pete Davidson is Marmaduke, apparently. I can't really picture him voicing a cartoon dog. And it's from the director who did that infamous Spawn movie back in 1997, if that says anything about the quality of this movie. The animation, even from the trailer, looks so bad. The dog looked, I don't even know what they were going for with this design. Like you said, Ryan, it doesn't look even finished. It's like Netflix is in the middle of their current woes and losing subscribers, and they're like, oh, we got this Marmaduke movie coming out. We've canceled all our other animated projects. Let's just dump this movie to try to get more people in, regardless of whether it's finished or not. I think that's going to hurt him even more because it looks so bad. I haven't even seen the Owen Wilson one that came out like a decade ago, and people trashed on it. But watch the Owen Wilson film be more watchable compared to this stink pile.
Yeah, I remember when that Marmaduke movie came out, and I was like, I actually read the Sunday cartoons. I love Calvin and Hobbes. I love Garfield. I love the Peanuts. But Marmaduke was like literally like a one piece comic at like the bottom of the page. That deserved a movie. All right, whatever works, I guess. But I thought 1 was enough. Now there's 2 of these things, and it's like Pete Davidson. like, isn't he in the middle of a thing with Kanye now? He can tear himself away from that to voice a talking dog. I don't know. This movie looks like it's made to be completely roasted by the nostalgia critic, which I don't watch him regularly anymore, but I peek my head in on occasion. He actually just recently covered both the Bobbleheads movie from 2020 and this movie called Pinocchio: A True Story. Both of them look horrendous, and it's like those two and Marmaduke are like the new like food fight of animation. It's just like, wow, what are all of you doing? So can we give this a 0? Can we break the scale?
Yeah, let's do 0. This just looks so bad.
I don't want to go into negatives, but let's just stick with 0 for now. Unless maybe like Uwe Boll directs something, then we can go into negatives. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. All right, well, let's talk about something marginally better. Let's talk about Along for the Ride. This is a YA romance. I've seen this trailer now a couple times because Rachel and I actually previewed this on our streaming preview over on her channel. This movie just kind of looked okay to me. YA romances, it tend to be a bit of hit and miss for me. I don't know about you, Jacob. What say you?
It depends on the quality of the movie. Like, I'll acknowledge a good romance movie, young adult or big adult, whatever you want to call it. If it's a good movie, it's a good movie. I saw the trailer for this, and to me, it just looked pretty disposable. Like, the story just seemed nothing to write home about. I was not really feeling the chemistry of the characters just on the trailer alone. Of course, it could be better when watching the actual movie, but it just didn't look like something that would appeal to me. So this is one that's going to be an easy skip. It doesn't look like the worst movie coming out this month, but it's not something I'm like hugely excited for either. I'm going 2.
I agree with you on that too, and I think I'm being a tad generous on that one. Let's move on to Firestarter. This is coming to theaters and Peacock same day, and this is based on the Stephen King book of the same name. Jacob, what do you think about this trailer?
It's interesting because this is the second time this story has been adapted. It was originally made in 1984, and the girl was played by young Drew Barrymore. And I saw that film once several years ago, and I wasn't a big fan of it. I liked the premise, but the execution I was not a fan of. And Drew Barrymore did a lot of overacting in that movie, which really annoyed me. But I have seen the trailer for Firestarter a couple times. I'm not as familiar with the child actress in this movie, but she looks like she's going to play the role appropriately well. I think she's going to embrace the character for what it is, while also having a little bit of a sinister side, which I'm really looking forward to seeing that unfold. Her dad's being played by Zac Efron, and it'll be interesting seeing him take on a more dramatic performance because I'm used to seeing him in musicals. This movie looks interesting. Of course, it could fall flat because there's a lot of Stephen King adaptations that do. But I'm hoping this one really delivers because I like the premise, and I hope this one actually does work out. I'm going 4. I might be a little generous, but it looks interesting.
Yeah, as a big horror buff, I am going 4 on this one. This does look really interesting. The young girl, she's actually been in a few horror-related things as of late. She was in It Chapter 2 as one of the kids that gets taken by Pennywise. I believe she's the one with the Under the Bleachers one where it's the firefly and Pennywise gets that and is like, hello. It's like that whole thing, which is terrifying. And then she was also young Antonia in Black Widow. So she was one of the young kids there. So she's been around. And I'm strangely looking forward to this. As a horror fan, as a Stephen King fan, I'm hoping this is good. And it's a bit of a weird flex that they're doing same day release in theaters and in Peacock, but seeing as though that's the weekend of my birthday and it's surprisingly busy, I think I might have to take the Peacock option because it's maybe just a little more convenient. But I mean, that's just me.
Yeah, it's weird that they're still doing an occasional theater streaming route because I thought they had abandoned that at this point. But we'll see how it goes on this one, whether it'll do well or not.
Yeah, well, next up is another Netflix movie. It's called Senior Year. It's about a cheerleader who gets into a coma and wakes up about 20 years later and pretty much picks up where she left off. Is like, well, God, be the prom queen. And so she goes back to her old high school to do that. This trailer really didn't do all that much for me. My only thing that I saw and pointed out was Rebel Wilson and how she looks like really really skinny nowadays, and I applaud her for that as someone who used to be a heavier person. Like my heart always goes out to those who like really work hard to lose weight, whether it's for a role or something else. I really do give her all the credit for doing that, but outside of that, I kind of nothing to this. What say you?
Yeah, this one did not do it for me at all, which is a shame because I've enjoyed Rebel Wilson in the past. Like, I thought she was hysterical in Pitch Perfect as Fat Amy. So it's weird seeing a skinnier version of Rebel Wilson because I'm used to seeing her in Pitch Perfect, but I guess good on her if she wants to live a healthier lifestyle. I do respect that. But the premise just does not look good. I don't think this one's gonna work. The premise just sounds so lowbrow, eye-rollingly stupid. Like, why she's going back to the high school is beyond me. If I was in a coma for 20 years, I'd be like, oh, I didn't have the best experience in high school. I'm 20 years older, awake in a coma. I'm gonna move on with my life. That's all I'm gonna do. It doesn't look good for me. I don't know how it's gonna work. It looks like the cringiest movie of the year. 1 out of 5 for me. I'm not too excited about this one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. One. So next up, let's talk about Sneakerella. This is on Disney Plus, and this is like Cinderella but with sneakers. I don't know. This one seemed a bit weird. Jacob, what say you?
When I saw the trailer, I thought I was watching a joke movie. I'm like, what is this? Why are you doing the Cinderella story, but with a dude and his obsession with sneakers? I don't think that translates as well. I guess I'll give you credit for trying to do a unique spin on the classic story, but sometimes when you tweak it too much, sometimes it's not going to pay off. I didn't see the recent Amazon Prime version with Camila Cabello, but I heard that was an absolutely terrible movie. So sometimes overly translating it for modern audiences doesn't always work. This one just seems I don't know. This one just it doesn't intrigue me in any way. It just looks like a bizarro version of Cinderella that looks like a cheap parody of itself. I honestly don't know what to make of this. And because it doesn't interest me, I'm going 1.5 on this one.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I mean, if I hear good word of mouth, I might look into it, but otherwise, I don't know. This is just bizarre. It really, really is. But let's move on to, well, I guess speaking of I guess bizarre, let's talk about On the Count of Three. Um I was not prepared for this when there was literally a screen saying this deals with mental health and suicide, so if you're having trouble, like, have a number. And it's about two dudes who form a suicide pact with each other. Like, Annapurna, are you okay? What did you think of this, Jacob?
I I have no idea what to make of this one too. For one, it looks like it'll be a well-made movie. I'm intrigued by the premise, but I'm also kind of alienated by it too because the movie looks like it's being played out as a comedy, yet it's dealing with dark discussions of suicide and them having a pact and possibly killing each other at the same time. I'm like, are we supposed to be laughing at this? I have no idea what to make of this. I will give the trailer credit as it has one of my favorite country songs growing up. I love the song in the trailer, Travis Tritt's "It's a Great Day to Be Alive." That is a great song, but the movie, I'm not sure on this one. It looks interesting though. And I guess if it has good word of mouth and people are saying good things about it, I might check it out. But because of my skepticism on how they're going to handle the subject matter, I think optimistically the highest I can go for this would be a 3.
Yeah, I agree. And if I do see this, my mind might be changed. But just from this trailer, I'm just sitting there like, wow, like indie cinema clearly having a normal one on this on this one. So I will go 3. It was very well made, or it looks like it is, but I don't know, it just feels a little off to me. But let's move on to Montana Story. This is starring Haley Lou Richardson, about a woman who travels back to her family ranch with her father who is dying, and basically re-encountering her old demons. What did you think about this one?
This one looks interesting too. Like the trailer, I respect that it didn't show too much. It just focuses more on the cinematography of Montana and hinting at some of the secrets of the characters. Even though there's not much that was shown in the trailer, I am intrigued by this one too. And it has the potential to be a hidden gem of 2022. I hope this one actually turns out pretty good. I'm going 3.5 on this one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. If nothing else but for Haley Lou Richardson, everything I've seen of her has been pretty good. So I am highly optimistic. At least half of that is because she is in it. Well, next up is Family Camp. And um, what do you think about this one?
This looks awful.
Going 0 again, are we?
I actually am a little generous. I went 1.5 because the setting I can relate to, because it's set in the church camp. I went to several church camps when I was a kid. So I'm like, okay, if you can make a good movie out of a church camp setting with relatable characters, you could make something out of this. But oh my gosh, even in the trailer, the comedy just looks bottom of the barrel. The characters feel like they're annoying caricatures, and it just looks so bad. It pretty much, it's interesting because I recently watched the movie Meatballs for the first time with Bill Murray, and that film had a good balance of like, kids slapstick humor, adult humor while still keeping a PG rating. This looks like it's all kitty juvenile humor, and when you're going that bottom of the barrel, your movie's gonna fall apart because it'll only cater to a certain group of people and not really much the general audience.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 1 on this one. It is, like I said, I went to several. I was even a camp counselor at one of those camps once upon a time.
Yeah, I
So,
was the junior counselor.
oh really? That's
Yeah,
that's
I,
awesome.
I was a junior counselor, I think, for 2 years, and it was fun. I didn't care about cleaning the toilets though. That was the one part that was bad.
Well,
Other than that, it was pretty good.
we'll have to share our stories on the show sometime. I'll make myself a note of that. But as far as Family Camp goes, 1 out of 5 for me. Like, even as someone who's been to a lot of these, and it was like, oh, I get that. I mean, even still, I'm just like, what was even the point of all of this? Well, next up, something a lot better, Downton Abbey, A New Era. Now, I have a bit of a confession to make. I actually love Downton Abbey. I've been watching the show with my mom, and we've both loved it. She's super into it. I'm super into it. I saw the 2019 movie. It was actually quite good, and it gave us the impetus to watch it and watch the series. And it's like Heisenberg's blue meth levels of addicting. I didn't think I'd get this hooked in to this very rich family living in their big, like, castle-like manor in like 1910s England, but by gum, I got hooked. And so this now that I've officially, well, by the time this airs, will be having one episode left of the main series. This gives a lot more context to the events of a new era. I feel like if you're not like a Downton Abbey fan, it might be a little lost on people. But I think for Downton Abbey fans, this is like Nirvana.
Yeah, I have actually not seen a single episode of Downton Abbey, and I'm not that really excited to see this because I know if I just watch it just as this movie, I'm going to get lost because if I'm not mistaken, this show has such a vast history of different characters and the time setting. And I think you have to watch the show to get into these movies. So I'm not in a rush to see it unless I decide to binge all the episodes, which I might, especially after your recommendation. But I know for the fans, this will be a lot higher. Like, I think if I was rating it, if I was a fan, I'd say 4 or 5. But as someone who hadn't seen the show yet, 2.5 for me. That's just me being generous.
Yeah, as someone who is a fan of this show, I am going 4.5. I am very excited for this. And just for context, in terms of the time, the first episode of the show starts literally days after the sinking of the Titanic, and it ends around 1925. So it covers about 13 years in about 6 seasons of television.
A lot of history.
Yeah, like Titanic sinking, all of World War One, the house becomes a field hospital, and then the Roaring '20s, and it stops like just before the Great Depression. So that's about how far it covers there. But
yeah, the trailer for the movie, they were talking about, shooting a movie, and they were talking about, silent movies and the possibility of talkies. I'm like, okay, this is a lot of history.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up is what I like to call like it's pretty much as close to a fever dream as I'll ever get. Chippendale Rescue Rangers. As someone who has never seen an episode of the show, this was kind of lost on me, but I think for those who have seen it, it might appeal to them. But I don't know, things were in 2D animation, 3D animation. Chip or Dale or one of them got CGI surgery, which I suppose is commentary of trying to capture the glory days. This was rough. Jacob, what say you?
See, I haven't seen the show either. All I know about it is that catchy little theme song. Chippendale
Rescue Rangers. Yeah,
I love that song.
Yeah.
But the trailers have actually kind of sold me on this because you have the Chip and Dale stuff, yet you're also doing a mix of animation and live action. So to me, this brought a lot of Who Framed Roger Rabbit vibes when I was watching the trailer. And I am a big fan of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So if this movie can capture the spirit of Who Framed Roger Rabbit in a modern setting, blend the 2D and 3D animation together while still appealing to fans of the show, I think this has potential to be really good. Like, I laughed throughout a lot of the jokes and the meta commentary in the trailer. One of my favorite jokes, there's like this Viking character who's voiced by Seth Rogen who trips and falls, and he's literally talking to the Pumbaa from the live action Lion King, also voiced by Seth Rogen. That got a great laugh out of me. And then there's another joke where you see like a grown-up Peter Pan who's now like this hitman mobster type, which is such a bizarre thing to do to Peter Pan, but it looks interesting, and I like the joke where he corners one of the chipmunks and goes, I was more of an Alvin and the Chipmunks kind of guy. Either Chip or Dale goes, "You monster." As someone who has a sibling who cannot stand the Alvin and the Chipmunks movie, she watched that and thought it was like peak silliness of a joke. I'm actually intrigued by this one. I think it's going to be a hidden gem. It might actually be a great film. I don't know. It looks really weird, and I guess if that turns people off, I can see it, but I'm actually kind of excited to see this one. And call me crazy, but I'm actually going 4.5 on Chip and Dale.
Wow, bless your heart. I mean, I was going to go 2 on this one, and this is coming from someone never seen the show. I thought this trailer looked like what was going on, but I might check it out. I mean, who knows? I've seen trailers to bizarre stuff, and they've won me over before, so anything can happen, I guess. But let's move on. Speaking of indie cinema having a normal one, let's talk about Men. This is the new A24. This is like the 3rd or 4th movie they've released this year. A24 has been on like a tear this year, just this year alone. But seeing this trailer, I'm interested. What did you think of this?
This one looks interesting too. It's one I can either take it or leave it on. It's directed by Alex Garland, who made 2 previous movies. One I really, really liked, which was Ex Machina, and one I really, really disliked, which was Annihilation. So this new movie, Men, can go both ways. And at the time of recording, I'm seeing early reactions, and it looks like it's going to be another polarizing film from this director. Like your film snob, film Twitter people are like, this movie will be the best of the year. And I can see like general audiences going, oh, this film is art house trash. I don't know, but it looks really weird. From the trailer, the premise intrigues me. I don't know what's going to happen in it. It looks like it's some girl going crazy, and there's a bunch of like creepy dudes after her. I don't know what's going on with this. It looks absolutely bonkers. But I am intrigued, and I'm curious if this director, Alex Garland, can make another interesting movie like Ex Machina was. If this will be a good one of his, or I'll be disappointed with it like Annihilation. But for interest, I'm going 4.
Yeah, I'm going 4 here too. As a big fan of A24, I'm open to seeing anything that they do. And Alex Garland also directed Dread. I don't know if you've seen that movie with Carl Urban, but
Oh, that was really good.
It's fantastic. I recommend that to anyone who hasn't seen it. It's very violent, but it's very, very good as well. I highly recommend that one. Let's move on to Good Morning, spelled Mourning, starring Machine Gun Kelly. This is the second movie this year starring a prominent music act. The first one being Studio 666, starring the Foo Fighters. What did you think of this one?
It's not doing it for me at all. I don't know Machine Gun Kelly that well. He doesn't appeal to me in any way. So I saw this trailer and I'm like, I guess if you like his music, you might like the movie. But as someone who doesn't know him, I hear interesting things about him that I guess turns me off from trying to dig into his deep discography. But this one just doesn't look good. It looks very lowbrow and obnoxious. I was not a fan of the premise just from seeing the trailer, but it looks bad to me. I'm going 2 just to be generous. I guess for people who like Machine Gun Kelly, they might get something out of it, but not for me.
Yeah, I agree too. This one just is over my head. Let's talk about The Valet now. This is on Hulu. There was no trailer for this at the time of this recording, so I'll just read synopsis off of IMDb. A movie star enlists a parking valet at a Beverly Hills restaurant to pose as her lover to cover for her relationship with a married man. This stars Eugenio Derbez and Samara Weaving. I love Samara Weaving. I don't know if you've ever seen Ready or not, but it's fantastic, and she's the best part of it. So I'm willing to give this a 3 just for her sake. But what do you think of that synopsis?
It looks interesting. If I saw the trailer, that would determine how I'd feel about the overall product. I have actually seen Ready or Not. That is an awesome movie, and Samara Weaving is awesome in it. So maybe she'll bring something to this material, and I guess I'll agree with you, Ryan. I'll go 3 on this one.
All right, well, next up, this is yet another one with no trailer. It's called Emergency. So I'll read the synopsis. Ready for a night of legendary partying, 3 college students must weigh the pros and cons of calling the police when faced with an unexpected situation. This was this sounds potentially interesting. It kind of sounds like an I know what you did last summer type situation, but I don't know, it remains to be seen. Just based off of that synopsis, what do you think?
Eh, I mean, it looks like it could be interesting. I guess any movie with something as clever as that could be interesting. It just depends on how you execute the story. This could either be a really good movie or a really bad movie or an in between movie. It just depends on who you got making this movie. But I guess on the premise alone, probably 2.5 or 3. I guess it depends on, when I see the trailer.
I'll be slightly generous and say 3. Just from the synopsis, I'm like, there's potential here. Hopefully they squeeze some juice out of the lemon there. So we've got 2 more movies to cover, and one of them, I guess we can say, is a bona fide 5. It's Top Gun Maverick. At the time of this recording, the reactions have started coming in, and they are outstanding. And I was so worried about there being a Top Gun sequel because I love the original to death. It's one of my favorite 80s movies. And so when I heard there's going to be a sequel, I'm like, oh no. I mean, like, Tom Cruise has discovered the fountain of youth and isn't sharing it with anyone. So it's not a question of can he still go? He still can. I mean, the dude's still hanging off of planes in his late 50s, for goodness sake. But at the same time, it's like, how much stories there left to tell for Top Gun? Well, clearly there's enough for this movie to exist. And the trailers have all looked surprisingly great. Tom Cruise is in it. Miles Teller is in it. John Hamm is in it. I mean, this is a big old 5 from me, Jacob. What say you?
I was not expecting to go 5 on this movie at all because while I like the original Top Gun, I didn't think it warranted a sequel. And seeing that they were making a sequel years later, I'm like, are they going to make a worthy sequel all these years later, considering the original is pretty much a product of the 80s and how cheesy and ridiculous it is? The first trailer intrigued me. The second trailer, I'm like, intrigued me a little bit more. This new trailer floored me. And then I saw that behind the scenes trailer with Tom Cruise and all the other actors talking about how they went through rigorous military training to learn how to fly planes and that all the action was practical. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, heck yeah, 5 out of 5 just to see some practical action. I'm excited for this movie. And it might be better than the original, especially since I'm hearing early buzz that it's apparently one of the best movies of the year. Like, somebody even tweeted that this movie is so beautiful it might get a Best Picture nomination. I don't know about that, but if people are hyping it up that high and it's that good, then maybe the Academy can pay attention. We'll see.
Yeah, this was actually directed by Joseph Kosinski, a name that might not sound super familiar to all of you, but he directed one of my favorite Disney movies that no one talks about in Tron Legacy. He directed Oblivion, starring Tom Cruise, which I actually quite enjoyed. And he directed a super underrated movie called Only the Brave about the Granite Mountain hotshots. I highly recommend everyone check that out because it is awesome. And so seeing his name attached to this and seeing the reactions being the visuals are awesome. All of his movies are like, they belong in museums. They are just like masterpieces to look at. So that does not surprise me at all. I said, just from trailers alone, this is a 5 from me, but I'm crossing all of my fingers and all of my toes because Top Gun is very precious to me, and I just hope that they do right by it. And just from all the early reactions, it sounds like they're going to do that. Let's cover one more Netflix movie, Operation Mincemeat. This is based on the true story of how MI6 basically played a big old prank on Adolf Hitler. And just from this trailer alone, this combines many things that I love. World War II, spies, Colin Firth, Isabel Crawley from Downton Abbey. I mean, I could go on, but this trailer looks awesome. What say you?
Yeah, this one actually looked really fascinating to me. all the stuff you mentioned intrigues me as well. There's a lot of great World War II stories out there. I'm not familiar with this operation, so if the movie delivers on that account and it engages me with its mix of, the wartime stuff and the espionage spy stuff, I think it could be a hidden gem. This might be the movie Netflix is looking for to boost some subscriber counts. I'm actually thinking this could actually be a good movie. We'll see what happens. And I'm going 4 on this one.
I'm going to be a little more generous, 4.5. I think this looks real promising. Well, let's wrap things up by talking about the Bob's Burgers movie. This is one of those ones that got delayed due to the pandemic. As someone who has never seen an episode of this show, I'm not so sure I'm going to like this, but for fans of the show, I have a feeling that this might work well for them. I am just going to go 2 out of this, just as someone who has never seen the show.
I've seen a few clips of Bob's Burgers in there. It's, I think, in the same quality, I guess, of old animated shows like The Simpsons and Family Guy. I don't know if it's made by the same people or not, but it has that similar style of animation. The clips I've seen, it's okay. It's not mind-blowing or anything. The movie itself, again, I haven't seen much of the show, but I think it could still be a decent time if it's made to cater to the fans of the show and deliver a fun little comedy film for an older audience. I think it might have potential. If anything, if as an animation fan, this might be worth supporting because it's 2D animated and there's not too many 2D animated films on the big screen. So it might be worth seeing just to support 2D animation. But aside from the Bob's Burgers name, this movie, I could easily just wait and rent it and try to check it out and see if it's any good, especially if I haven't seen that many episodes of the show. But it could be a decent time. Between this and Downton Abbey, with my lack of knowledge, I guess I'm slightly more intrigued by this over Downton Abbey. So for me, I'm going 3.
Very good. Well, that's all the movies in the month of May. What are you all excited for? I have a feeling I know at least 2 of them. Leave your favorites in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say about that. And that's all for us. That's another episode in the books. Jacob, thank you so much as always for being a part of this. You really are the best. So tell everybody where they can find you.
They can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook, and of course my 2 YouTube channels. My secondary channel is Storytime with Jacob, where I do book reviews and read-alongs at the time of this video. I am currently wrapping up my read-along on the very first Goosebumps book. I decided to dive into that. I was a little bit nostalgic because I love those Goosebumps books as a kid. And so I'm reading the first book in the series, Welcome to Dead House, which is a pretty good, solid first book in the Goosebumps franchise. And I'm excited to dive into more read-alongs going forward on the second channel. And then, of course, on my main channel, where you can just look by my main name, Jacob Martin, I do a lot of movie reviews, TV reviews, and other fun stuff. I got some really exciting content which just recently dropped. I just recently did a vlog in the movies video where my sister got to react to Zombieland 2 for the first time, and she really enjoyed that. I did a live stream review with fellow YouTuber Q Reviews on the first Ghostbusters. That was an amazing experience, especially since he's like the biggest Ghostbusters fan I know. I did a recent celebrating Disney video on the Disney sequel Jungle Book 2, which is not that good of a sequel, but it made for an entertaining video nonetheless. I recently did a Superhero Saturdays video on Doctor Strange that I rewatched to prep for the upcoming sequel. I recently reviewed Lethal Weapon 2 for my Richard Donner director project, and I enjoyed revisiting that again. The Lethal Weapon movies are awesome. At the day we're recording this video, I just dropped my Cinema Roundup video where I shared all my thoughts on all the movies I saw in theaters and streaming this past month in April. You can check out my thoughts on movies like The Lost City, Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Bad Guys, and Apollo 10.5 on Netflix. Though all my thoughts are all in that one video if you want to check that out. And another video that will drop on my channel this week is my first installment in my Project Hank series, where I'll be slowly making my way reviewing Tom Hanks' filmography in no particular order. I got a video where I'll be talking about the very underrated film from 2002, Road to Perdition. So definitely be on the lookout for those videos, which have either already dropped or are premiering on my channel this week. So some really amazing, exciting stuff coming your way.
Yeah, be sure to subscribe to him. He has 2 great channels, and he deserves all the love he gets. And over on this channel, on Monday, I dropped a Twilight Zone vlog talking about the episode called The Whole Truth. I was not a big fan of it, but check out my thoughts there. And then I'll be reviewing Doctor Strange when it does come out. And then this coming Sunday will be my first reaction to Dazed and Confused, the classic Matthew McConaughey movie directed by Richard Linklater. So be sure to check all of that out. But if you liked this video, please be sure to leave a like. And if you like this video and you want to see more like it, do hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way, when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. That's Jacob Martin. My name is Ryan Cam, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.